Hi, wee Bob here, and this is part 2 of my Drawing Dragons series. And if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by dragon wings and other aspects of drawing dragons, this video and series of videos is for you. So let's talk about dragon wings and how we understand them to help us draw them. It helps when talking about mythical creatures to relate them to something that exists or existed in real life. To help you draw your dragon, we can look at bats, we can look at dinosaurs, we can look at reptiles, as there is some actual scientific facts for us to relate to. As we are talking about the wings this week, we'll start by looking at bats. A dragon's wing is very much like a bat wing and are sort of similar to hands, which I talked about a few videos ago. Let's look at that anatomy, as it will help us make our drawings look accurate and cool. Here is a typical bat wing anatomy, and I based this drawing on a diagram I found from Brighton University. So I'm hoping it's correct, apart from my attempts to write the names correctly, which was a bit of a fail. But as we can see from this diagram, the bat wing is very similar to a human, with the forearm, which leads to the wrist, and then we have the fingers, which are just long, and then in between those fingers we have this wing membrane connecting each of the fingers and then to the body to make the wing as we can see it. A dragon's wing is very similar. How do we break this down to make it easier to draw and our brains don't think about, oh, I have to draw the dactylylacopadagium? Instead of confusing things, we just break down shapes into things we know and things that we can relate to. In this case, the bat wing or dragon wing is just an umbrella, just a typical umbrella that we use on rainy days. If we can draw cylinders and cones, then we can draw all the elements of the wing. From last week's video on getting started with your scene, I've decided on my pose, and it is based on a 3D model image that I found on ArtStation. The link will be in the description, and I'll put the artist's name on the screen. I have taken it to the basic thumbnail look where I separate the background from the midground from the foreground as shown. These ArtStation 3D models that people have made are amazing references to use on art, as it can also give us the image or the shape that we're trying to draw from different angles, which sometimes helps our brain to get that shape that you've made a mistake with and to adjust part of the drawing. Anyway, let's start talking through the drawing of the wings and the skin. Initially just sketching an outline using the darkest of colours on my scale, just using those S shapes and C shapes. It may help you to just concentrate on one part of your drawing at a time. In this case, I am using the white lines to start showing the 3D shape of the shoulder and the wing. As discussed, the umbrella shape of the wing helps us to think of that when we're drawing. It helps us not to think, oh, I'm drawing a dragon, too scary. As you start to sketch, you may adjust the overall look of the drawing depending on what you're trying to achieve, depending on what you're seeing, and just what your brain is interpreting. So from my value scale, I'm trying to stick to a 7 to 9 range to try and keep the dragon shape bold and in the foreground. And then I can use the lighter details, the lighter shades, to start defining shapes and detail. In terms of brushes, I used a variety of brushes for this image, and I'm just drawing in Rebelle 5 Pro, which if you want to buy and support my channel, I have a wee affiliate link in the description. If this video has been of use to you so far, hitting the wee like button is massively appreciated. In Rebelle 5, the digital pencils are very crisp brushes and could be used for inking. I then jumped between the painting tool and the blender tool. To figure out how the skin looks and folds, I started looking at a lot of images from Jurassic Park as well as dinosaurs on ArtStation. When looking at my reference, I realised that the skin texture is very much like an elephant, and therefore if you want to add texture to your drawing, this is where we need to start looking at other brushes, which will make it easier. This is not just a digital art tip, as in real life people use different brushes, they use sponges as well as other materials that give their work some texture. So it's definitely not cheating, as some people may suggest. We can also just add those little details in by being patient and taking our time to get the drawing looking awesome. It'll depend on if this is a job where you have tight time scales or not, and so keep going with adding in the detail just a little bit at a time, remembering to think about our 3D shapes and really get those details in. The speed that you need to do that is dependent on what you're trying to achieve ultimately. By doing this drawing, I have had to really look at the shapes and run of the skin and the folds in the skin to understand how a dragon dinosaur head connects to the neck. For me, this was tricky this week. And as we look at photo references, our brains get confused and sometimes feel overwhelmed. And this happened to me a few times, which made me frustrated, but take a breath, step back and start again, or move on to another part of the drawing for a period of time. In order to help you, I wanted to break down what my brain had to eventually get to grips with. Getting multiple references will help, as when we only go for one reference, sometimes the information that our brain needs might not be available in that one reference. One of the references I looked at was a painting by Todd Lockwood, who is a master of drawing dragons, and this anatomy helped my brain. I decided to give it a go, and on a new layer on the sketch that I was doing, I made out the muscles and the bones as you would see on a kind of anatomy drawing. Doing these mini exercises I find more interesting than just doing a standard anatomy study. Another reason for looking at other references and where these 3D models come to be helpful is that I couldn't figure out why the dragon's tail was so small in the reference that I was looking at. But having these other references, we can see the shape of the tail overall, and now that we can see what way the shape of the tail is going, it makes sense to our brain, and it helps us to either decide that's how we want to go or not. Having worked on the dragon for a long time, it was time to move on to the background and strengthen up what the scene was. Where is this dragon? What is the story? And that's what I'm showing you just now. Initially the plan was to do a weird sci-fi temple with maybe a figure going into like a big open door. But I love post-apocalyptic scenes. It's just something I really like. I like The Walking Dead. I like all kind of post-apocalyptic or dystopian type societies. Those types of books are the type of things I like. And so I decided that this building was falling over. So I went to ArtStation again and I started looking through the keyword for post-apocalyptic for some inspiration. Starting with a basic window shape, the power of the clone tool in digital art comes into its own. As you can see, by cloning this window, the time saved is significant, and when it comes to repetitive shapes, we want to make them look alike, and then maybe make them smaller, and the clone tool in Rebelle really helped me to do this with these windows. The clone tool in Rebelle is here, and it's the same icon in a lot of different digital art programs. By pressing Alt key, I can select the area that I want to clone and reset this with the Alt key again as I go along. Hold down the Alt key, select the part of the drawing that I want to clone, and then I clone from there as shown. Unless you're going for a very repetitive looking picture, you want to get in there and change some of these details that you've drawn using the clone tool. Remember, we don't want to go darker than a 3 or 4 value. That'll keep the building in the background and our dragon nice and forefront to our image. One of the biggest tips for checking if your drawing is working is to zoom out to a very small size. So if you can still tell what the drawing is and the drawing reads well, somebody can tell that this is a dragon, and they kind of get the scene overall in their head, and your drawing has a good composition to it generally, and your values are good because everything's not kind of just mushy brown and stuck together. I have skipped me adding the detail to the head until next week's video, which if made, it will be up in the corner. Otherwise you might want to check out my dragon playlist. Thanks for watching, and Wee Bob is out.